Have you ever felt so strongly about something you forgot what motivated you to feel that way in the first place? I remember feeling a very specific way about the Star Wars prequels. Growing up, they had a reputation, and that reputation turned at some point. For a while, I used to call it revisionist history or nostalgia goggles, but after this recent screening of Revenge of the Sith that I went to go see, I wonder if my tune is also changing. Maybe I'm just returning to the rose-tinted glasses? Or maybe now that I'm an adult, I can find something of substance. Revenge of the Sith is a film that I went to go see at the theaters back when it came out 20 years ago. My mom and I went to the Cinerama Dome. I remember it so vividly. It was an awesome night with a movie that I was really excited for, that was unbelievably hyped, especially for a child. But then as the years went by, my brain somewhat developed, and I was able to think analytically about all sorts of stuff. Not everything, not the important things in life, mind you. But Star Wars, sure. I still hold the opinions I have for episodes 1 and 2. I think they are bleh. But I've always considered Revenge of the Sith the better one of the three. And I've always understood why people tend to like that one the most. It has the strongest narrative, it has the strongest production value, it has the strongest performances. But there was always something in me that felt like those were an excuse in the same way that the Darth Maul fight or the pod race was an excuse for the Phantom Menace being good. For me, those sequences don't make a movie. And I felt the same way about Revenge of the Sith. But I went the other week and I was kind of stunned. Although I was making jokes throughout the whole screening, which probably bothered some people, I did find myself at times being enveloped by Anakin's story. Is Revenge of the Sith secretly brilliant? Is Revenge of the Sith secretly prophetic? Now, before I continue with this existential crisis, I want you all to celebrate May the 4th by checking out our narrative podcast, Star Wars Lightspeed, a great little story made by Star Wars fans, the story of the hyperdrive engine and its creator. It's really cool. We had a great time making it. There are great performances, really cool sound effects. You can press right here to find it. One of the significant elements in the Star Wars prequels that is constantly criticized is its political content.
The media said, we don't understand this. This makes no sense. The most popular of the three prequels. They made total sense.
We see it in episode 1, 2 to 3. How the Senate is influencing the Jedi Council and vice versa. And I think the intent with that is that George Lucas wanted to do something a little bit more complicated. He wanted to prove himself as a writer. He wanted to show that these films were not just for children at this point, even though he said the opposite plenty of times. And he wanted to discuss the realities of war in a fictitious space. Pun. And I think it falls completely flat in episode 1 and 2. In this film, I was actually pretty okay with it. I was intrigued by the way that the Emperor started to put his hands all over the government in Coruscant, and how the Jedi Council knew this was happening and tried their best to take control of the Senate. Because ultimately they know that the Emperor, or I guess Palpatine, Sidious, Ian McDermott, they knew how much of a threat he was. Not only to them, but to democracy in of itself.
Who even speak in Chinese accents. It's all geopolitical.
And there are scenes in this film where Palpatine is taking over, making speeches, convincing his cult about his way. And it's reminding me of a little situation that most Americans are currently facing. And although the Star Wars prequels were written during the time of the Bush administration, and Palpatine is a clear metaphor for Dick Cheney, he has become a greater metaphor for someone else.
We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night.
And there were points in the theater where I was just silent and I couldn't make any jokes. This space odyssey felt very real at some points. And it's hard to argue that a movie is bad or terrible even, when it gets so much right about the real world. Sure, it's very face value. It's not getting into the whole minutia of the political sphere that we live in currently. But that's not really its job. The goal of the film is to set up Anakin as Darth Vader. They have to keep it somewhat lighthearted, even though this is the darkest film. It's a tragedy. So for them to do this, to show it in this way, I think is bold. If we look at just how Obi-Wan explained the fall of Anakin Skywalker to Luke in the first film, it's very simple. Anakin was a great guy who was seduced by the dark side, who fell to Darth Vader. In this, they're not showing it as a whole black and white thing. They're showing it as a very gray issue, for Anakin at least. Do I think Anakin is the best protagonist? Not really. Do I think his story is interesting? Absolutely. I do understand where he's coming from. I understand his fear in this film. And what's more, I understand how the Chancellor takes advantage of that fear. We see it in real life, where people use fear as a tool to influence the masses for their own agenda. This is not a far-fetched idea. Part of me wishes this was just the prequels, episode 3. Because I felt that they got at least the core story of what should set up the original trilogy really down in this. My favorite aspect of this film is definitely the last 30 minutes where it's setting up A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. We're traveling through a very dark, terrible journey where there are people dying, and it leads us to a hopeful conclusion where one day we can actually persevere. And though George Lucas is not an actor's director, there are some great performances in this. When Hayden Christensen doesn't speak, I get everything from his eyes, from his body language. Ewan McGregor is great, but the person who really shines in this is Ian McDiarmid. The scene where he talks about the story of Darth Plagueis is brilliant on his end. He does a great job of conveying the information, the emotion, playing Anakin, reliving his past. That scene for me is the perfect balance between exposition and show don't tell. Although he's telling you the story of what happened, there's a lot that he's not telling you that you're getting from his performance. And when he goes full on Emperor, he goes full on Emperor. All that's missing are some Big Macs. Another aspect of this film that I think really attracts a lot of Star Wars fans is its look. It is a beautiful looking film. It has this grounded aspect to it, this kind of wartime cinematography that is appropriate for the tone of the film. It is a tragedy. It's not supposed to be something lighthearted like Return of the Jedi or even A New Hope. This movie is a prelude to the darkest time in this galaxy. So for a lot of the framing to emphasize power, nihilism, and pain, I really appreciate that. And although I criticize Lucas as a director, there are some really well-directed sequences in this. My favorite, without a doubt, is the Order 66 scene. I think that's just perfect the way it's done. Although I didn't know any of these characters dying, there's a lot of emotion put into that scene. Lucas has always been a great idea guy. I think he prefers coming up with the ideas than actually getting his hands dirty with the camera, which I can understand. Movies are hard to make, especially when you're criticized the way Lucas was criticized. But at the same time, he got these films done. They weren't all great. Some of them really weren't even good, but he made them. And I feel with Revenge of the Sith, he understood what wasn't working in the previous films, and he at least tried his best with this one.
George admits to throwing too much out there.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
Yeah.
A movie that makes me think in this regard, in how fiction can mirror reality and vice versa. There's something important about it. There's something worthwhile in Revenge of the Sith for me. When people look at each other and stay silent and say, wow, that is really messed up that that can be real and kind of is, I'm not going to be the one to put my nose up at it.
The dark side of the Force surrounds the Chancellor.
If he does not give up his emergency powers after the destruction of Grievous, then he should be removed from office.
I have had more people say, please run again. I said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that. But I've had a lot of people.
Anakin, I told you it would come to this. I was right. The Jedi are taking over.
This is a major fraud in our nation. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. We did win.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Is it a great film? Not for me. Is it important? Absolutely. Should people watch it? Yeah, It's Star Wars still. But that's just me. Guys, what did you think about Revenge of the Sith? Did you see it in theaters for its 20th anniversary? Please watch Star Wars Lightspeed. We worked really hard on that. It's a really cool story, really great performances, really great music. May the Force be with you. Have a good one, stay safe, and goodbye.
Like, share, and subscribe, you will.